Over 2,800 people have made it into the Two Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the Two Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe. Welcome back to the Two Comma Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are joined by Kathryn Jones-Lish. Super excited about this episode today. Kathryn has inspired a ton of people through speaking at Funnel Hacking Live and all the work that she does with joint ventures and podcasts. So I'm super excited to dive into the details of how all that works. So, Chris, if you want to go ahead.
I'd love it. So, Kathryn, we met you at Funnel Hacking Live. We met you again at our circle meeting. I know that you're a busy person. We just talked a little bit before we joined all the things you're doing, and just want to let folks know you have won an award through the Comma Club Award. If you just want to tell folks the award you won and kind of how you won that through your business to kind of give everybody a sense a little bit more who you are, we'd love that.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. This is going to be so fun. I love this concept for a podcast, simply because at the end of the day, the lever that matters most, honestly, is cash flow. Like, there's impact and there's the work that you're doing, but if there's not cash coming, the doors close. And so, as like maybe vain as that might sound to some people, that is actually the game at the end of the day. You cannot play if you do not have the cash. So I think it's really important to, I just think it's so cool what you guys are focusing on. How do you do it? How do you do it fast? So for me, I've made multi 7 figures, which is awesome. And I have received a Two Comma Club Award, which means that one of those 7 figures came through a single product or a single funnel. So I have received one Two Comma Club Award, which has been awesome through the whole ClickFunnels award system. And I did it for a digital product. So it was an online course that sold anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. A few months in, we raised the price. So yeah, I learned a ton through that process. It was one of the first products that I had ever, like, for real tried to launch. I'd done a few other kind of low ticket digital products here or there, but I had no idea what I was doing. So this was the first one I was like, okay, like, I'm actually playing the game. It wasn't a side hustle. It wasn't something I was doing with my full-time gig, like, on the weekends with my full-time gig. It was like, no, this is the business. Like, I figured out how to have a funnel agency. I loved it. I wanted to turn it into education. And we were able to turn it into seven figures. So it was awesome.
That's amazing. So if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a little backstory about how it is that you got into the world of entrepreneurship and ultimately funnels, that'd be fantastic.
Yes. Okay. Long story short, I was actually studying film in college, and then I went and I served a mission trip for my church in LA. So I was there for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And I realized while I was in LA that I didn't actually like the film world. I was like, dang it, which is a bummer because I was only like a semester and a half away from having my degree. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I'm a millennial, and I just hate that I was perpetuating these stereotypes. And I'm embarrassed what I'm about to tell you, but I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to help people. Like, I'm embarrassed. But remember, we're just like, we want to save the world. What does it mean? We don't know, but we're going to do it. That was me. And so the only thing I could think of that might help is like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know how I want to help, but I know it'd probably help if I had money. And so I was like, I'll start there. So I literally went to my college advisory center and said, hey, I need to switch my major to business. And they said, absolutely not. You have a semester left. Like, get out of here, And that ended up being the most divine blessing ever, because I was like, well, I guess if I'm going to learn, I got to, I don't know, figure it out. So I just started reading. I didn't even know what to read. I started reading like self-help books, which kind of led me to finance, personal finance books, investment books. And, somewhere along the line, they all know how to find us. So all of a sudden I'm reading like entrepreneur books. I'm getting onto people's email lists. I'm buying courses. I'm in college with money that I don't have, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And also I was like, you can actually make money online. It's not a scam. Like, I didn't know that, So I was so intrigued. And then I really discovered this concept of, not just like making money on the internet, but it was this concept of funnels. Like, oh, there's like a systemated, automated way to structure a business that you can win. And I always had wanted to be a mother, but I didn't know quite how that could work. I I wanted to be a mother, and I also had this thing that I couldn't turn off in my soul that was like, take over the world, And I didn't know how the two could exist. And like, logistically, like, where do the hours go? How do you be there when your kids show back up from school so you can hear about how their day was, and also, solve all the world's problems, and so when I discovered internet marketing, I was like, dang, maybe if I'm just not an idiot about how I build this thing, like maybe I've got a shot. And so that just took me from like, oh, this is really cool, to like next level obsessed. People are like, Kathryn, why didn't you get married till you were 30? I'll tell you why. I was watching webinars for like 7 years straight. That's like all I was doing, I just was
I
like,
love
this is
that.
the most amazing thing in the world. And so anyway, I discovered that. I discovered funnels from Russell Brunson. My like OCD brain loved the structure of it. I loved that there was patterns and simplicity, and that this whole online game of how to make money, just, it finally made sense to me. And so I really dove into the world of funnels. I went through their certification program at the time, and I was working. I graduated at the time, and I was working a full-time job. But I was doing funnels on the side, and I was making more money on the weekends, just like building funnels, than I was at my other job, and I loved it. And I don't know if you guys have been there where you're like, my full-time job, I am doing what I can to get a proficient grade, and then the second that proficient grade is there, I'm like, give me to my other thing. My soul's on fire. And I have a little perfectionist soul. So as I was making these funnels, some of them would do great, some of them wouldn't do as well. And I knew that some of it had to do with design. I just knew it, like just in my gut. And I was like, I've got to figure out how to design better. Then I found this study. There's a study from Google and Stanford that said that people determine the credibility of your website in 0.05 seconds, and over 90% of what they're judging is your design. So I was like,
Wow.
oh, it actually is affecting conversions. So I was like, I've got to get better at this for my own personal pride and for the sake of the money of my clients. But I was too stubborn to like go get a graphic design degree to learn coding, Photoshop. I was just like too impatient. And so my stubbornness and impatientness helped me to figure out a way how to get crazy good at design and designing funnels specifically for conversions. So I started doing that for my clients, and it worked really well. And then word got out. People started asking how I was doing it. They asked me to start teaching them. And then it wasn't even on my radar. I had somebody that I taught said, Kathryn, you should put this into a course. Like, people want to learn this. And I said, no kidding. Dang, what a great idea. You know what I mean? I was just like so stuck. Like, I have my full-time job. I have my agency. Like, things are going great. And then it was she kind of opened my eyes to be like, you could really help people, especially because once you know design, once you know funnels, and if you know how to sell them, you know what I mean? Like, you really can make money by the weekend. And my stubborn way kind of made the results really, really quick. So I did that and started my own funnel with that product. And that was the product that led to that first 7 figures. So it was kind of a crazy, I honestly, I just think it's a gift from God that somehow I became obsessed with something that makes me money. It's like, I love playing guitar. You know what I mean? Like, I love sketching, but dang, what an awesome benefit that another thing I'm hyper obsessed with is marketing. Something that actually puts money in the bank. So I just feel like that was like such a divine gift to find something that I could marry with like all these like yearnings of my soul to be a mother, and could actually make it work. So it was just a lot of divine intervention that I feel really grateful for.
That's awesome. I love your energy on it. And I think part of it too, tell me if I'm wrong, is when you're doing things, your unique ability or what you really enjoy doing or you're gifted at, it really just feeds the energy on that. I just see you doing that now with what you're doing. I love that. And I think that's contagious. Other people want to be around that, and they want to be in that infectious. So I guess one question I always ask people is like, obviously you got a point. You talked about having a job, but loving marketing. What point did you hit kind of like, I got to put both feet in, I got to kind of, just got to jump off and do it? And how'd that feel? Like, what was that process for you going through that? Like, you don't mind sharing?
Yes. Oh, well, first of all, I think for anybody in that situation, I just like, my soul just like, it equally cheers for you and aches for you, because it is such just a, like, I don't know what the better word is than like, place to be in, because there is one part of your soul that's like, how awesome, there's this reliability, there's this predictability, and then this other part of your soul that like cannot turn off these ideas and yearnings to help and things. And so it was actually when my full-time job asked to promote me, and I knew that with that promotion, I wasn't going to be able to be, doing my C's get degrees part for the job. I was like, I'm going to have to like really buy into this. And I was so grateful for that, because it was a forced crossroads. There's like a scripture that's like, blessed are you that are humbled, or blessed are you that are humbled, or that aren't compelled to be humbled. And I was like, no, I was compelled to be humbled. Like, I was brought to that point, but I was so grateful. And so it was a moment where I was like, Kathryn, are you gonna do all the things you said you want to do? Because I think there's always this like someday, like, oh yeah, it'd be really cool to do that. Well, someday they're really cool, blah blah blah. And that was the moment where I was like, dang, crap. Like I gotta either I like this is a point where like something will change. And I think again, like being so blessed to have so clearly in my mind the type of family I wanted one day. I was able to like look forward, you know, where it's like, okay, that job that I might get right now would give me X amount of more money this year, these kind of benefits. And if I went on my own, I also knew that in creating that that digital product, it would take away from the agency. And so I was like, I probably would turn down the agency to be more of a thought leader, you know, in the marketing space. So I was like, I know my profits will actually dip for a second, especially too because I'm going to put it into ads and like figuring out traffic and all that stuff. But man, I just knew if I didn't do it, I would just my soul would I couldn't look myself in the face. And so I did. But I was such a scaredy pants about it. So I had about like probably like 6 months of like solid runway of like I not only can I live, I can like invest a solid amount in like trying to figure out ads, trying to figure out whatever. And like probably like 9 to 12 if I was, you know, being frugal with my finances. So it's like great. And I'm like what, 24, 25, I can't remember. So I was like 26. I don't even know how old I was, but a while ago. So I'm like, okay, great. But I knew that I had that number, and that number actually became the biggest crutch for me because I was like, well, I don't have to launch because blah blah blah. So I had the product ready. I was ready to go. It was amazing, but I was like, oh, but I probably shouldn't launch unless I have a blog, a populated blog. Why? I don't know, but that in my brain I was like, people will know I'm just starting. And so like I gotta have a blog. And then the next thing was like, well, I also need a vlog. And my perfectionist soul wouldn't let me have a vlog that wasn't amazingly edited. So fast forward me investing $12,000 into video editing skills. Has it served me in the end? Yes. But did it serve me then? No, because all I did was spend $12,000 and 2 months learning video editing to then spend another month and a half making vlogs because I didn't want people to know that I was just starting. Like it was just crazy. And so my to-do list before launching just kept getting longer and longer and longer and longer until I found myself, you guys, gosh dang it, in this terrible place where literally I'm like driving through a drive-through with my sister getting dinner one night, and she's like, Kathryn, like, how's it going? Like, blah blah. And I was like, I'm just honest. I was like, Emily, I'm an idiot. Like, if I don't launch in like the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm gonna have to go probably get a job. Like, I'm probably have to go start looking for a job. And she looks at me, she goes, then launch. And I was like, dang, nice girl. Okay, like just do it. And I was like, ah. So I did, and so I finally was like, dang, I got to do this. So it was June 6th. I remember 2018. That was the day that I was like, dang, I got to do this. So I launched. I was so afraid. I like didn't have a list because I only had an agency, you know, like I didn't have a list. So I literally didn't know what to do, how to find people. So I just posted in the ClickFunnels group. No, I was like, I'm like kind of promoting this, but like maybe they won't kick me out. They did kick me out. Let me tell you that. We've come full circle now that, you know, they've bought my product and stuff, but they did kick me out. So I had to like beg to get back in. I was like, I'm sorry, like blah, 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 let me in. But that one post was enough to get like 30 people to my webinar. No, 10 people to my webinar. And I closed 3. And I was like, all right, I've got something here. You know, I have a 30% close rate. I just made $3,000. Like, I got to figure out another way to find people because I can't get kicked out of the ClickFunnels group every single time I want to promote this.
Right.
But that's how it started. And then from there, what's really interesting is you would think at that point I'd be feeling pretty confident. Like, oh my gosh, I had a 30% close rate on only 10 people on the webinar. But for whatever reason, that's when it got actually the most scary because I was like, crap, it's real. Like, now I'm actually out there. Now, like, my work, who I am, is like open for criticism, good and bad. Yeah. And like entrepreneurship, and I am now learning parenting as well. I have a 2-year-old, is like just the most expedited self help just thing because your good, bad, and ugly is just magnified, you know? All your strengths are just so celebrated, and all your weaknesses are just like ready to just be there. And so obviously, as you could tell, one of mine was like, I really care what people think about me, you know? And I was so nervous. I was so afraid. So much so within 3 days, you guys, I was in the hospital with an ulcer, a stress ulcer. Like I literally was like, I can't, it was so much. I was so stressed. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it just felt so overwhelming to me to like create something and then have people judge whether or not they liked it. And in my brain, it was me, right? With their credit cards, with their comments, with like everything. And then again, like insert like another divine moment, like this kind of beautiful, somebody connected us and I met this woman and she ended up I ended up hiring her to be my business coach. Again, and you want to know how much? So I made $3,000. She usually costs 10 grand a month. And I said, I don't have 10 grand a month to hire you. And she said, how much money do you have? And I said, I've made $3,000 in sales. And remember, I like depleted my reserves, right? So I had $3,000. She's like, all right, costs $2,500 a month. You in or out? It's a one-time offer. And I was like, crap. But like, I just knew I had to do it. So I said yes to her because I just knew I needed. I knew I was so in my head. And I was like, I knew this was the path I wanted to go on. And I needed someone to help me just remember that I was a capable human, even when I felt like I was shrinking inside. And so I hired her for $2,500 a month. And it's crazy when you have a $2,500 bill coming up every single month, you're like, I'll figure out how to pay it. And I did. So then the next webinar I made $5,000, and the next one I made 12. And then, you figure it out. And so it was this like really, I wish I could say it was prettier, that I was braver, but man, it was just this like clawing of like this, like Kathryn, like come out of yourself. Like, yeah, like don't be stuck inside. You can do this. And it's so crazy because I look back and I had so many experiences that indicated that I could do it. I mean, I had built funnels for other people. They'd made money through their funnels with me. I'd been really successful at my other corporate job. I'd been asked to be promoted. You know what I mean? Like I did really well in school. Like I was like, I can figure this out. But I think it's just people are just people, and scary things are just scary. And it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, and I think, I think scary things are a little bit, I heard this thing about grief once, that like grief, like grief doesn't go away. It's almost like a rock in your pocket, but you just kind of get used to the rock being there. And so where before it was heavy and it hurt, it kind of stabbed your leg. You just kind of get used to it being there. And I think scary things are the same. Scary things are always scary. Mm-hmm. And I think the more scary things you do, though, the heaviness of it seems to feel a little bit less heavy, even though it's not.
As so you push past that, it becomes more
yes.
familiar. Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Exactly. So I feel really grateful to have some grace for baby Kathryn, who was so scared, even though maybe she shouldn't have. But I try to remember that now, too, because scary things are they're still scary.
Definitely. That's interesting. I like that analogy. Another one that I've heard is like, especially us as entrepreneurs in this space, we're all trying to, reach new heights, right? Mm-hmm. So, do you know Bart Miller?
Yeah.
So we're actually in his accountability group, and he works with a gentleman named, I think it's Gabe Roberts. I could be wrong about the name, but he teaches people about energy things and letting go of those rocks in your pocket. But he uses the analogy of being a hot air balloon and like cutting off the weights on the sides in order to release those heavy things. And it's a really interesting concept. It's very, for lack of better words, kind of like foo-foo stuff, but like, it's kind of cool. Yeah. And, there's a lot of stuff that happens in life that's difficult, but you have to push past if you want to see those new heights in life. And so I'm curious to know, like, what were some of those larger obstacles that you had in your way that you're like, man, I really don't know how I'm going to get past this? And then like, how did you navigate going through and actually persevering and pushing through?
Yes. Well, and I love how you said like, oh, they're kind of fluffy, like these things. And yet the longer I'm in the game, I learned that the fluffy things are just important as the concrete, and you can't have one without the other. Like business is math, business is numbers, right? And also the reality is that numbers can send you into the hospital with an ulcer if you don't figure out your fluffy stuff. Like numbers are numbers, and numbers mean something, And so, and anyway, so just, yeah, what a beautiful game it all is. But, it's really interesting, I like asking that question, because I do seriously think that one of the biggest things that I had to do, and I so like grossly overcompensated for this in the beginning, but I was just so, again, afraid of what people would say if I did great, it was crazy because I could even think of friends and specific family members that like would potentially be a little bit irked if I succeeded, and would be really irked and offended if I failed. I was like, you know what I mean? I was just in this like weird spot. And so
100%.
And so I like so heavily, but to my advantage, now that I've taken a lot of other courses, like overcompensating, being like, there is no way that if somebody does what I tell them, they will fail. And so like my courses were meticulous, like do this, do this. If you run into this issue, here's option A, B, and C to troubleshoot. Great. Once you've troubleshooted, come here. Great. Awesome. This. Where it's like the only reason you will fail is if you've done things, because I've gone through all that and I'm so afraid that you will fail because of what it will mean about me that like I've just done this. And so in the end, it ended up being like incredible fulfillment, but it was perpetuated by kind of this fear of not being good enough or not doing this, not doing this. And I think one of the things that I've learned, like since launching products, like it's so interesting. I launched that product, and the reality is you all of a sudden you have 2 people go through it, and you realize like, oh, I could have done that part better. So you go do it better. And then you have 5 more people go through and they ask a question like, wait, what do you mean here? And you're like, you're right. I should expound on that a little bit more. That is actually a little bit too extensive, perfectionist Kathryn. It's more confusing than helpful. Like, take that out, you know? And so, that was like, as I'm looking at like the stumbling blocks and all these different things, it is a mindset that I have to have now today, that the game that and the standard that I have for me and for my team is that every launch is the smartest we possibly know, with the knowledge that the second it goes live, we will get smarter. And so it's like, what's the smartest we can put out there? Great. Let's insert enough data, and then iteration 2 the next week, the next smartest version is out there. And here, the next smartest version. And so it kind of allowed me to kind of compromise or maybe just satisfy both of these parts of my soul to be like, well, I want it to be the best for myself, for my quality of standard, for the people that I serve, right? And also, I think kind of quieting this monster thought that I have inside me of like, what are people going to think, blah, blah. The reality is it's never going to be perfect, Kathryn. Dang it. Like, as frustrating as that is to me, and to expect it. And that actually the feedback, good, bad, and ugly, is not only helpful for the tweaking of it, but I've also learned it's just so easily monetizable. Like a negative Facebook ad comment, dang, especially if it's true, gosh, it's going to be great. It's going to help you on the back end. If it's not true, wow, run that puppy again as an ad. Say it's like such a good hook. Like, and once I've learned to embrace that like any comment, if you know how to process it, is actually an amazing comment. And some comments are amazing because you're like, dang, that's going to turn into money. Like, put that into an ad right now. Some of them are amazing because you're like, crap, that hurt because that's real. And you're right. Like, I didn't like, I put out my smartest, but you're like, I actually didn't consider that point of view. So great. Like, I'm not going to do this. And so that's just something that I think has been like the biggest thing for me that I've come upon in launching any product is I need to do the smartest I can do and simultaneously know that it's coming. And so I think going back even to baby Kathryn, like the smartest I knew how to do actually was not make a blog as well and make a vlog as well and learn how to video edit. That was not the smartest. That was scared. And so I like always have my team check me too, because sometimes smartest for me can convert to most thorough, and it's not true. And so everybody always has like a default of what smart looks like to them. That's not actually smart, you know? And so I feel really grateful for that my team, my husband knows like my smart when I'm feeling scared defaults to unnecessarily thorough, you know, when it doesn't have to be that way. But that was the biggest thing. And the thing that if I have at the forefront of my mind, launch the smartest and then get smarter, launch the smartest that you know again and get smarter over and over again, then that really is how you can have your soul be settled, but also how you can quickly scale, because you're iterating to a point where all of a sudden you get pretty dang smart and it kind of stays a little bit stagnant at a point because you're like, great, products locked down. Now everywhere we get to get smart is the fun part, which is like the selling of it also.
I love that. I love you talk about getting, I believe really getting imperfect work out. And then really the idea, it actually becomes a personality of its own when it gets it out in the general public. Because now you get, like you said, you get feedback, good and bad. But you're only as good as you are, but you get other people's input about it. But I think that's where I find most people won't even produce anything until it's perfect, but it's only perfect to them. And then they deprive others and not having something that can help them and benefit them. So I love that. I love what you said. And this is something I've heard other people say, but it didn't occur to me until we started talking, Kathryn. So I was really enlightened. You said all these fears and OCD and being a perfectionist. But I think business is what got you past that in your life, where I see so many people who just go to the grave with perfectionism and OCD and fear of what others think. And for me, did the same thing. I can relate exactly what you're saying. It got me outside of myself, past myself, because I couldn't always be perfect. I mean, I got so many embarrassing stories about business, but because I continue to take action, we continue to make money. But if I didn't take the action and get outside my shell and in my perfectionism, I wouldn't have made any. I'd still be trying to people please and be a perfectionist, and I wouldn't have got
Yeah.
anywhere, got any traction. So for you, I just don't think. I mean, how I think the big thing is, how do you encourage or push somebody off the high dive when you're talking to people using your experiences? How do you do that and encourage them to get to the point where they need to go?
I I think the most important thing to realize about business is that it's not about business. Like to quote our dear Ted Lasso, if you guys have ever seen that show, but it's not about winning or losing. It's about becoming the best versions of yourself. And for me, like as a God-fearing woman, like I actually believe that's true. Like my point here, my objective, my purpose here on earth isn't actually to be an incredible marketer, though that is part of what I love to do. um but my biggest objective is, can I be the most like Jesus I can possibly be and help my kids to do the same?
Yeah.
And and business is only an asset. It's only something I do if it helps that purpose. And if it doesn't, like, you have to be willing to lay it on the altar. Like that was like when I was sick too. I was with Lucy at the beginning. I was telling you guys before, when I got sick with my first, or when I got pregnant with my first, I got so sick, and that was something that all of a sudden I like realized, where I was like, oh wow, the game might be over, and like that just actually has to be okay if that is what it is. But I think more often than not, when you look at people, I love how you said like people are looking to jump off this thing. The reason they want to jump isn't because they want more money. That might be the thing that hurts the most. But the reason they feel compelled to change or do is because, in my opinion, I mean, we're all children of God. They have divinity pulsing through their veins. If God really is our Father, we have, and however it works, we are a divine offspring, right? And so there's something inside of them calling them to be more like God, who created the world, right? He wants us to create and love and help and expand and be more than how we started. And like, I think that's the beautiful thing about God, is he'll keep tapping on our shoulder till we listen. And so we're going to be like perpetually like called to jump and jump. And sometimes it's louder, and sometimes we figure out how to like make it a little bit softer. But for me, whenever I feel scared or insecure, or my OCD, I have OCPD. So I don't know if you're an OCD guy, but I have OCPD. If anyone knows, that means it's a hyper obsession with checklists and organization. So if you know how to use it, it's great. If you don't, it's crazy vibes. But I like think about that, and I'm like, okay, great. If I can like learn how to mold and yield these things to actually help me to become like God and love people like God, oh my gosh, then business is the greatest thing in the world. And it's worth the stomach ulcer, and it's worth bearing whatever Kathy from high school is going to say. And it's worth maybe even like this controversial, like maybe even going into debt to like buy the course to figure out what you have to do, because I know the game I'm playing. Like, yes, like cash flow is the lifeblood of a business, but cash flow is not the lifeblood of a soul. And so it only matters if blank. And so like all the conversations I have with people that are either just starting, or they're X amount in, or they're, you know what I mean? They're millions of dollars in, there's 8 figures in. Like I think the only point, at least for me, in the conversations I've had, when we start to feel crazy and when we yield to inaction, is when we actually forget what the heck we're doing here. And, I am just like perpetually, like, even I was telling them before them, like my goal for 2025, I hope I have a baby. And I know what that means for me. I know it means I'm going to throw up, and I'm probably going to be pretty absent from the internet for a while. And like, if you would have told that to me 7 years ago, when like my business was my life, I'd have been like, what will it mean? What does it mean if I disappear? Will people forget about me? Like, blah, blah. And it's been like, I feel so grateful for like the experience of being a mother and feeling what it means to have a child, and how having a business pales in comparison to that. And if the business is about the money, but if it's like, great, can I use this business to perpetuate, this purpose of being a mother and having impact outside of my home, then it doesn't actually matter what version it molds into. So I was telling them this year, like all this, we were doing a ton of one-on-one client work. We were Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, and like we're just like not doing that this year. And we're like turning a lot of our stuff into digital products and other things that can be automated and all these different things, because the main purpose. And it like actually didn't hurt. It didn't hurt to be like, dang, we're like giving up all these opportunities to meet these cool people. It's like, dang, give me a baby, son. Like, I want, like, please, I like want one so bad. And like, can we use the business to help other people along the way, to help us along the way to do it? So think that's a long answer, and maybe one that people might not love, but it's been the guiding star for me, is like, do you know what you're doing, and do you know you're doing it? And if so, like, with Christ, all things are possible. You can jump and you're not going to fall. And it might be uncomfortable. It might be scary. You might end up with an ulcer, but like, you can do it. So anyway, so I think, yeah, whether how popular that answer is or not, that would be the answer I would give.
I love that answer. It's faith is such an important part of, this journey in life and everything that we have going on. Like, it is more or less like the purpose we're here, right? And we have to figure out how to embrace that, navigate it, especially with all the different opinions that are out there around it, and just being able to get comfortable in your own skin with it and things of that nature. So super important, super critical. So I am personally really interested in learning how it is that you got into the joint venture space and started working with some of these individuals that you've listed, like Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, and things of that nature, if you would mind sharing.
Oh my gosh. Well, it really is this like crazy story, because it just continues, right? So there I was, I made like 3 sales, and the next week I made 5 sales, the next week I made 12 or whatever. But like, it was just all hustle. I'm just like going into internet marketing groups. I'm like DMing, being like, trying to be friends with people, invite them to come to my webinar. I mean, I'm exhausted, but like, I don't know how to dance on social media. Nobody wants to see that. I'm not limiting myself. Who knows? Maybe we'll have it one day, but like, I'm telling you, I didn't know how to do social media. And I told you, like, my resources had depleted. So like, I actually didn't really have money for ads anymore, because I was too scaredy pants to launch. And I like SEO took way too long. So I was like, crap, I like need to figure out how to get sales, like, actually. And so I had heard about this concept of joint ventures, where somebody with a product convinces somebody with an audience to let you pitch your product to that audience, and then you just do a profit share on the back end. And the idea is really simple, and it's extremely sexy. And the implementation of it, if you don't know what you're doing, is entirely overwhelming. And I remember being like, why in the world would anybody let me, who's made 20 sales, right? Let me, lowly old me, come and pitch to their huge audience that they've spent time and money to go into, And it honestly, again, like, talk about divinity, the first like joint venture happened by accident. I met somebody on a podcast. She like listened to one of my podcasts. She said, hey, you're cool. Would you come give a masterclass in my Facebook group? I just said, yeah, sure. So I didn't even like pitch. I just like shared the secrets, And from there, like 13 people joined my program. And so she kind of heard, and there was only like 50, 60, because it was like a coaching group. And so there were only 50 or 60 people there. And she heard how many people joined without a pitch. And she was like, okay, you need to come back and do it, but this time pitch, and let's profit share this. And I was like, yes, awesome. She's like, I want a cut of this, And so again, talking about perfectionism, I was so afraid I was going to fail. Guess what my profit split was? It hurts to tell this story, you guys. We've come a long way. But guess how much I gave away on the back end? 90%. 90. I literally was like, if I biff it, then like she can't be mad at me. Gosh, Kathryn, we have since renegotiated. I will say I've done a joint venture in a group every year since we started. But it was just this beautiful thing where all of a sudden I did it and we pitched. I got 30 people into my group, which I didn't get paid basically for any of it. But also I was like, this works, and I was able to really understand the process of what it looked like, and why. And I would just went back and, why did you say yes? Why did you think this would work? And she was the one that kind of got me into this whole concept of like, well, I kind of like started with the first step, and you're kind of like the natural next step. And all of a sudden I was like, ding, like if you can find people who come either before you or after you in like the customer storyline, right? Like you help, if a business is like, again, talk about like a little OCD brain, but like if a business is like broken up into steps, and you happen to be step 4, right? Like, can you find people who are step 3 or step 2? So for me, I was helping people build funnels that convert, design funnels that convert. So who are people that worked really well with? Like, who's the step that came before me? Is anybody that did traffic? If you have traffic, you got to send it to somewhere, and you need that somewhere to be a funnel that not only looks good, but converts. Great. So I started partnering with a bunch of traffic people, and that was the conversation. You're step 1, I'm step 2. I think between what we could do together, we could really help your people in the next step. Awesome. And they're happy about it because they don't know what step 2 is, or they don't care to teach it. And I don't care to teach that. So we're not competitors. We're entirely complementary. And so that 90% giveaway ended up really paying for itself because of that nugget she gave me. Well, I don't know. And it was just off the cuff, I'm the first step, you're the next. I was like, ah. So all of a sudden I just like started throwing darts at the wall, like trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do I get people to listen to me? So, because all I have to do, it's a very simple process, right? When it's all boiled down, it's get their attention, show them the storyline. It's nuts. That's it. get their attention, show them the storyline. And so I got smarter and smarter and smarter about how to do that. And so, like, how did I get to that 7 figures? It was all joint ventures. That was my traffic source, was joint ventures. And it was awesome because we would just start scheduling anywhere from a joint venture a week to a few joint ventures a week. And people really sleep on these small groups. I'm telling you, they'll be like, well, I'm not going to a Facebook group that only has 120 people. Well, let me tell you this. If somebody has a Facebook group of 120 people, those 120 people are diehards, because you're not in a group if you don't mean it when there's 120. I would have like the highest conversion rates in these small groups because they would do whatever that our leader said because they believed in them so much, you know? So sometimes I'd be pitching to a group of like 50,000 people. And sometimes literally like later that afternoon, I would do the same pitch to a group of 150 people. And we just like churned. And we were able, and it was so great too for like the health of the program too, because you wouldn't just get like one sale, like kind of trickle in, like even every day, right? You'd get like droves like of like people and people that know each other. So like they're like, oh, I'm from the Doug group, oh, I'm from the Spencer group, oh, I'm from the Lauren group, like who else here is this is awesome, let's go together. And then you just get smart too about how you pitch. There's like differences between how you do a normal webinar versus a JV webinar, and how do we maximize the fact that these people are tribe, you know, and how can you get them to sell themselves, and tiered bonuses and all these different things. It was like such a fun game to learn. And it was beautiful because it was risk free. You only pay after, you know? And so that really is how it started, was that key nugget of like, I come before you, you come after me. We're actually a great pair. And I was like, that was it. And so since then, again, you know, my brain has frameworked it out and created the steps and tested and tried and true. We actually had, before I was pregnant and into it, I wanted to make sure, because very similar to design, I was just doing it for myself. People started asking, how in the world are you doing this? And I was like, oh, wow, okay. You're right. I should probably figure this out. But I wanted to make sure it worked. So I literally like hosted masterminds at my house, intentionally inviting 8-figure owners down to people who had never made a single dollar. And I would teach them all the same things. And I made them sign up for a series of 3 masterminds. They'd come month 1, month 3, and month 5. So they'd have a month and then they'd implement. And then a month they'd come back and implement, and to see where it broke. And the only people that didn't do it were, God bless them, the people that didn't do it. Like if they followed the steps, they made money with joint ventures. And so it was just this like awesome thing. And once I knew that the framework was sound, then it was like, okay, let's go play. And so we did that and started teaching people how to do it. And then, you know, whenever we teach people how to do something, they're like, can you just do it for me? And so we started having clients, and word got around, and blah, blah, blah. One long story short, Dean and Tony had a big launch coming up. You know, they do a launch every year for their mastermind product, and they wanted help with their affiliate and partnership stuff. And they asked if we wanted to do it, and we said, we do know how to do this. Yes, we can help you with that. So it was really great. We just did it for the launch. It was like amazing. We learned so much, but it was really fun to see how the frameworks held strong. You know, like they work here, they work there. Like Tony isn't a god, you know, like he's a human, and people will promote Tony for the same reason that they'll promote a no name. Like people are self-interested in heart and not all at the same time, but like, you know, the rules don't change because a Tony is a Tony or a nobody is a nobody. Like, what are people after in business? What are they trying to do? And how can we facilitate a relationship that makes it happen? So anyway, so that's been really beautiful too. And so in the meantime, I actually ended up selling CF Design School to Russell Brunson, and I'm actually the face of their funnel program over there, but it really lives and breathes inside of ClickFunnels now, which has been awesome. That I didn't have to like give away my baby, but I still get to be the face of it. But like they're running ads, you know, I get to do all the fun stuff. And then we really get to focus on this partnership stuff over here too. So it's just been like a really beautiful, again, talk about like divine series of things that have happened over the last few years. And again, divine, once again, it really works out that I married an amazing marketer as well. So we're now business partners too, which is great vibes for me, I will say. So not only is he cute, he knows business, which was kind of just a game over for me. So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
so that's how we got into it too. I was just trying to sell that dang first program, and look where it landed us.
I love it. I love the fact, well, first off, I know you can definitely see the passion when you're talking, and I appreciate that, Kathryn. I think part of it too, you talked about God and just your why. I know that's really important to me, and I teach that to my group is, you know, your why is your most important thing. And like you said, it's going to be hard. There's just going to be things that are hard. Even if you love doing something, there's going to be hard parts about it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, my why is I'm a leader who makes leaders. It's not what I do, but who I am. So when I don't feel like doing things, I do them because that's what I have to do. because of what I want to do, what I want to accomplish, and I feel like God's called me to do. So for you, I just know that there's so many people that are looking for direction. Obviously, they're getting coaching, and you said coaching, you couldn't afford it, but you did it because you knew you needed something else. Same thing. I needed accountability. I got that, and things took off
Yeah.
for me. And obviously, there's a part there. People, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is people their own worst enemy. I keep hearing you say it more than once. When people do the things that you tell them to do, they get the results, with work. And same thing. I think it really is mental mindset. And we are our own worst enemies. And you've said that about you and the challenges that you had. How are you helping folks now? Like, what's a big deal? I know you said it's really not about the money because it gets to a point that's just how you keep score. That's how you pay
Yeah.
the bills. But for you, what really motivates you now that to see other people or to help other people or things you're working on in your business that you want to do, not that you have to do now?
Yeah, the thing we're most excited about. So, in kind of falling in love with joint ventures and partnerships, we just learned that helping people do things together that they couldn't do apart is just so exciting. And so we've played the brokerage game, right, where we're like, okay, great, like you have an amazing product, you have an amazing audience, like let's get you two together. But what we decided to do is we kind of wanted to expedite the process. So rather than connecting the audiences, right now we're just actually building them. So we have a podcast network right now that right now we have about 7 podcasts. The goal is to have it to about 30, 40, 50 by the end of the year. And they're, our marketing brains, they all lead into lists and all these different things. And then to just keep expanding and expanding that. It's almost like a record label. But to have audiences so that when we find an amazing product that helps people become more like God, helps people be more with their family, has like an amazing impact in the world, it's just a series of light switches for us. We're like, oh, great. We have an email list of X size in this particular niche that will work. We have an email list here and here and here and here. And instantaneously overnight, we have 72 joint ventures booked for them with lists that we own. And so we just get to be the people that find amazing products and get to choose who gets the stage in the world. And so that's like a lot of what we're building right now. And again, teaching people how to do it along the way. But ultimately, our souls have just fallen in. I mean, too. You find something that you're like, dang, you're just getting started, and the world would be better if you were everywhere. And so, building the resources and capacities rather than connecting people with the audiences, rather than us being the middleman, us just being the man, I guess you could say, and having those. So that's what we're building now. It's been so exciting and so fun. We're learning so much about what it means to have a label and a network and marketing all on the back end, but it's been so fun. And so, we're really excited for where that's going to take us and just the products and the people that we can get out into the world because of it.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. I love that. It's all about networking. Like you hear the concept all the time. Your net worth is your network. Or sorry, yeah, I think that's right. Your network is your net worth. Anyway, it can't be any more true. And especially like I know in the beginning, a lot of individuals who are in the ClickFunnels space and things of that nature. Like if you're listening and you're at the beginning of your journey, like the number one thing that is most underrated that I believe Russell teaches people is the idea about building your list. And I think you've touched on that a lot about how important that is and getting connected to other individuals who have lists that are relevant to what you have going on and things of that nature, and how powerful it is just to have that network and be able to essentially have access to getting your value out to the world. And so I'm curious to know, like, what was your first experience of being able to kind of merge some of those individuals together and help connect, like getting their product out to someone else's audience and things of that nature?
Yeah, and it really just, it was all the same process as ours. It was kind of really interesting. It was, hey, you're at this point in the storyline. Who's downstream or upstream from you? And the conversation becomes really easy, and hey, meet our cool friend. We think you guys could be great together. And so it was really fun because you kind of got to set them up for the alley-oop, right? They dunk it, and then we would just take care of everything on the back end. But that's what's been beautiful, whether you're connecting people via brokerage or you're again more experienced business owner, or a lot of times too, people will discount themselves, be like, well, I can't do joint ventures, I can't be on podcasts, I can't speak on stage because I'm just starting. And I just have to blatantly tell them no to their face, because that was me. I was starting, and this is exactly what I did when I was starting. It's not just like, no, this can work, I've done it for people. No, this was my story, right? I had made 20 sales No one knew who I was. I had no money, and I used this tactic to get booked on huge stages, booked on big podcasts, and to get booked for joint ventures. And so, anyway, so I think for anybody that's wanting to disqualify themselves for X, Y, or Z, I just won't let you. This actually is just a game that if you know the rules and if you know the strategy, if you know how to play, then you can win and win in a big way with podcast stages and joint ventures.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people, you said, just I think it comes back to fear. Like you said, they talk themselves out of it instead of stepping into their ability. They want to talk themselves out of it, which can do that. I know getting people to jump off, it seems like something you're really good at, just connecting with people. I think we do hold ourselves back a lot, but I do see that making the connections, talking to people, one of my big values, I know this is Tony Robbins talks about helping and adding value. And that's just my core value, who I am. And to me, it's more exciting. You tell me, Kathryn, I know you've helped other people in businesses. I get more excited when somebody else makes their first sale or a bigger sale or when they launch something than me going out and buying, real estate and
Because
making
you're
a
like,
bunch of money.
I told you, it works. Like, you can do this. You can totally do this. Yeah. And again, I think it's all, I mean, like, it's this like perpetual balance, this perpetual I think check in with God, right? To be like, dude, I'm so pumped that I had that huge payday today. That's awesome. And if I'm connected to my purpose, I need to remember that money was never mine. It's like God's trusting me with it. It's a stewardship with it. And so, like, God, how can I use that money? What should I do with it? Like, and I think sometimes God's like, sure, girl, go buy the boat, whatever. I don't want to buy a boat, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's bad to have things. I don't think it's bad to have nice things, but I do think that the recognition of money coming to you is a stewardship. And so whenever I think about that too, like, because even when you have things figured out, you're always learning and expanding. And so sometimes you'll be like, dang, we're getting our butt kicked this month. Like, the money is not. And so what I do is I go to God and I think, like, how can I become more like thee to be more trustworthy, so that you'll entrust me with the stewardship of these things. And God's so quick to be like, oh, great, I'm glad you asked, sweetheart. Like, dang it, okay, I'll change this and I'll change that. But that's like the thing I think is beautiful about somebody making their dollar. It's like, okay, we're in the same game, not in the same game of business, but like, okay, you got $1. What are you going to do with it? How beautiful. Like, you have a resource to play, to do good, and to do exciting things for your family and the world and all these different things. So yeah, it is. It's like, I think even more exciting when you think about it that way. It's not just like, dude, go buy an ice cream cone. It's like, what are you going to do? Like in the big scheme of things, what are you going to do with that $1? So, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing game.
That's really cool. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about, I know you do podcasting, joint ventures, but also you do speaking gigs and things of that nature. And so I'd love to hear kind of like your backstory as to how it is that you got into that realm of things as well.
Yeah, it turns out it's all the same game. It was an accident. Literally, I was just trying to book joint ventures because I was trying to make money. And turns out any partnership or collaboration, whether it's having somebody on your podcast, you being on somebody else's podcast, doing a masterclass, doing a speaking gig, a virtual speaking gig, a summit, a joint venture, a product integration, like, it's literally all the same game. And so once I realized that, and it was again by accident, because somebody was like, oh, will you be on the show? You're kind of the first step and I'm the next. They said a version of that. I was like, no kidding. Dang. And so then all of a sudden I was like, well, can I just start booking the stages I want? So I would just pitch the event owners and I would say, hey, you're here. I'm here. You don't have anybody speaking on this. Here's how it's going to help you pitch your offer at the end. Great. Do you want to? And they'd be like, checks out. Love it. Makes sense. And so it's really fun. And the thing that's awesome is once you book one collaboration with somebody, because they understand the storyline, they can see where you fit in all these different things. Like, for example, like, I don't know if you know John Penberthy, but he's huge in YouTube ads. He has a conference called AdCon. It's a huge conference. And I pitched him on a joint venture like 5 years ago. He said, no problem. But we got in contact and he knew where I fit in the storyline. So we've been able to do other things since then. And like, he just asked me to speak at his event in London this year. Why? Because he knows where I fit in the storyline. So like, that's what I love too, that like any effort to book a collaboration, whether it's a podcast or a joint venture, whether they say yes or no, it actually has ripple effects because they see where you fit. So when they're strategically planning, they're able to be like, oh, Kathryn fits here. Oh, her result fits here. So I can do that. So It is, yeah. So how did I like get started on stages? How did I speak at Funnel Hacking Live for the first time? I pitched Russell on a joint venture, and he said no, but you know where you could fit, because I understand the storyline. You'd fit really well in my next event. Would you speak there instead? I said, no problem, dude. I'm not even mad that you said no to me. Yes, I will, 100%, right? But that's how it started, and I was like, dang, it's the same. It's all the same game. Who's here? I'm step one. They're step two. Can we find out where we're complementary? And can you take people the next step, or prep their people so that they're ready for the audience owner step better with that? So yeah, that's how I got into it. Again, just a girl trying to make money, and turns out it's all the exact same process.
I love it. I love it. Well, I definitely think part of it is, and you tell me, I think you definitely got a lot of enthusiasm because you love what you're doing. And I think when you're really, like you said, if you're doing, I wouldn't say your calling, but when you're stepping into your calling, I mean, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to fill the space. And this is what I say a lot of times in the morning is, if I don't get up and do what I'm supposed to do, I'm not going to be able to change other people's lives. Like, they're going to still be doing their job, what they don't want to do. And I want to help them step into what they do want to do, but they got to take that leap of faith. And I do think, obviously, I just love it. I love connecting with people just like you. I just get excited just hearing you talk about how to connect with people, and it's a lot funner to run the race with somebody than being at an office somewhere doing it all by yourself and not connecting with others. To me, it's much more motivating. It's much more exciting. Real excited about your family growth. I think that's what it really is all about. It's easy to forget about that. We talk a lot about business and those kind of things in life, but man, it really is about our family and how we can impact them for the long term. And for me, it's more exciting about my kids now, how I get to impact them, how their lives are going to be so much different. And then I think about, too, my clients, how their lives are going to be so much different by implementing, like you said, implementing the things that you ask them to do, and they have no idea. One of my favorite people is Ben Hardy, in my authors, and he talks about being your future self. Who you are now and how you're going to be in business, you have to change. You just do, because you can't, like you said, you got to put an idea out to the world, and the world's going to scrutinize it or bless it. And then really it's going to have an impact, but it won't make any impact if you're just keeping it to yourself. And I think a lot of times, like you said, give all the secrets away, help people. You were just trying to help people. I love that. So we're really excited about that for you and your family. How are you working with your husband? John works with his girlfriend. I'm really curious. How are you guys, that dynamic, working with family? You said, hey, he's cute. He does marketing, he knows business, but I'm sure it's not roses every day. So how's that going with working with your husband? I'm just really interested to hear.
Oh my gosh. You want to know what? It has been, I will say, it's only been awesome. And that doesn't mean it's only been easy, but it has only been awesome. And I think that the only tricky part has actually just been revealing in the sense that, like, there are things that he and I are both really good at. And so it's figuring out, like, okay, we're both really good at this, and we're actually both really bad at this. And so there's some things where it's like, oh, it's really natural. Like, he'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, he'll do this. And so it's been really figuring out, like, well, what's our unique ability, right? Like, who actually loves this? Who does this give life to? What does this mean? And so it's kind of this beautiful thing when, like, all of a sudden he realized, like, he's really good at, like, the marketing back end, automations, funnels, copywriting part. But when he realized that he didn't have to do that, and that, like, set my soul on fire, I'm like, dang. Thank you. Like, so, like, give it to me, let me do it. And, like, vice versa. Like, he is so, like, I love being with people, and he, like, loves being with people. Like it's really fun for him. Like, his favorite days are days that are, like, chock full of phone calls. And my favorite days are when, like, and this is going to sound rude as I'm talking to you. I'm having a really great conversation with you guys. But, like, when I talk to no one and I just get to, like, build all day long, where I'm just, like, building. And when I ended the day, I have, like, something I can see versus when I didn't, And so once we kind of started to figure out what sets our soul on fire, that's kind of where we were able to really thrive. And it's been really fun too, even in parenting, to be like, okay, great. Like, you love this component. You don't love this component. We both hate this component. Great. So how are we going to, like, share it? And maybe parenting's the wrong word. Maybe, like, managing a house, where, like, that man unloads the dishwasher. My little OCD soul is like, dang, it's organizing, it's fun, so it's like, great, I will happily unload the dishwasher if you'll load it, like, I don't care. And even just stuff like that where you're like, fun, like, we can see where we get to fit in our lanes. And so and it's just facilitated so many beautiful conversations about like, God asks us to be one with, cleave unto your spouse, be one. And it has just facilitated so many conversations for us to learn how to be unique and still be our own selves while building one kingdom together, building one family, building one business, building one impact in the world. And I don't think that has to be the path for everybody in the slightest, and nor is it, but it has been, like, such a blessing for us to, and for me to have eyes to look at him differently, to be like, wait, what you like, I didn't even know you had that gift. First of all, you're amazing. And in the other vein, to be like, you're, and him for me too, like, why are you freaking out about this? What's going on in your soul? Whereas, like, I think if our professional lives were separate, he would deal with that on his own, I would deal with that on my own, and it would be what it was. And so it's just been it's honestly been a gift, I think, in the big scheme of things, to just learn how we all operate in just all different settings. So
That's awesome. That's a cool story.
well, yeah. And I have to be rude because I do have to go. I literally, though, I would talk to you guys forever and ever. So I'm going to be annoying and end the conversation, but I am going to make you guys come onto our show. So is that okay? So we can keep the conversation going? Because I have all these questions for you guys too, but I just like loved being with you guys. Thank you seriously so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. If you wouldn't mind sharing real quick where people could go follow you, and get in touch with you if they wanted to. Just
come hang with me on Instagram, Kathryn Jones-Lish. That's where you can find me. We have fun stuff going on all the time. We'll teach you how to book podcasts, joint ventures, all the good. We have a really cool deal going on right now, 24 courses for $24. So if you kind of want to dip your toe into the collaboration world and kind of see how it gets going, I think that's a really cool way you could start. But mostly, if you have something that the world needs, it's your obligation to figure out how to get on the stage. And if you know the rules to do it, then you can do it. So anyway, if that sounds fun to you, then come hang out with us. Me and Travis would love to help you.
Thanks, Kathryn.
Awesome. Appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.